Hi, Konrad. Welcome to my class today. I'm so excited that you are visiting and giving us a guest presentation over you and the cool work that you're doing. A quick intro to Konrad is that he's an alumni of Texas Tech University. He has his Juris Doctorate. He went through the dual degree program for law and personal financial planning. So he has a master's in personal financial planning. So he really went through a unique program that we have and is doing great things out there in the world today. And he started his own practice. And so he's a business owner as well. So I'm going to stop there and let you talk a little bit more about yourself, Konrad, and then we can get into really wherever you want to go with this today. So take it away.
Sarah, thank you again for having me as your guest lecturer for I think this is the third time now, so I am very, very happy to be here and to have our coffee talk and to delve into some of the topics that you cover in your retirement class, how they function in my firm, and some insider tips and for you as students to take into the workplace and create your budding career from a already phenomenal jumping point as Texas Tech has to offer.
Wonderful. So why don't you tell us a little bit about, what programs you participated here at Texas Tech and kind of how you ended up launching out into the world as a financial planner?
Sure. I mean, I think one of my favorite, I'd say three pieces that I really, really enjoyed at Texas Tech. One was Toastmasters. The PFP chapter of Toastmasters was phenomenal, especially whenever you're going out and giving presentations to your community. And I just read an article from Michigan University, which said that for retirees especially, that having a great community engagement through classes and other workshops and things like that provide a really good help to combat Alzheimer's, mental, any kind of situations where people degrade mentally. So Toastmasters gave me a great tool of being able to speak publicly, which I highly, highly encourage you to check out that chapter, even if it's just coming in and listening. You don't, just because you attend the chapter does not mean you have to give a speech or anything like that. And what it does, it gives you great tools, even in your phone etiquette or your etiquette in client meetings, how to utilize your words, because our profession really is storytelling. So that so Toastmasters would be one. The second one would be doing the cruise that we had, and I still think it's available because the pandemic has been put on hold for last 2 years, but I think it's coming back. And I think it's the Financial Society that does put on the cruise through Terry Getman, and we're looking for students from Texas Tech to attend that too. I think that was a really great opportunity where I met really integrated with professionals in having morning lectures, and in the afternoon and evening being able to network with professionals in our industry and be able to get to know them on a very comfortable level. So like through dinner, through lunch, and that was really great. And the third would be any kind of conferences that you can attend in the industry. And those really showed me, introduced me to other professionals, showed me, opened the door for internships and job prospects. And that's for, once I graduated, 2 of my job offers actually came from those conferences. So I was very, very lucky with that.
Awesome. And talk a little bit about how your TTU network sort of supported you, because networking like that also, it helps with jobs, but also building those relationships to mentor and support as you enter out into the profession.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think the TTU network is very, very robust, even, here in Florida. So I'm located in lovely Naples, Florida. And I see Texas Tech alumni very often. Even I went on a vacation to Disney World about 2 weeks ago, and I wore my TTU soccer jersey, and I had so many people come to me and be like, "Oh, Texas, like Lubbock, Texas Tech, how small world." And so yes, there's alumni out here too, really across the country, and situations even like this, and going back to my alma mater, being able to give you a guest lecture presentation, and that's one. And really just even across the board of my success where I am today, it came from many helping hands, which included mentorship, and being able to really learn the expertise of many different professors and many different practicing advisors. And their help really came through by a connection through the university. So yes, I definitely think that mentorship was a really big piece, and also why I'm here today. So if you at the end of this lecture, you see like, hey, I had a budding question and it didn't get answered in Q&A. On Tuesday's class, I had 4 students reach out with different questions through LinkedIn, and my email, LinkedIn, is all available to you. I very highly encourage you to reach out and connect, because I'm tremendously am very happy to help young students come through the program and move forward in their career. And how are you going to find that? Just Google my company name and you'll be able to find me.
So students, he means that. So right now you have my permission to multitask. Open up another window, go to LinkedIn and look him up and send him a request to connect on LinkedIn. So he definitely means that. It's not just lip service. So he wants to make those connections and help Texas Tech students into the future. So Konrad, I have to ask, what's your favorite ride at Disney World? Like, that's the question that popped up.
Whoa, actually, it was in Epcot. Epcot has this ball that you walk in, and it's no thrills. Like, there's no like pulls of gravity or anything. It's a slow ride that goes through like the history of the world. It was so cool. Interesting. So actually, in my undergrad, I studied classics, so I learned a lot of like ancient Greek and ancient Roman history. There was one piece where they had a little bit of a kind of historical error about the burning down of the library in Alexandria. They thought it was in Rome, but you know what? Other than that, it was just so entertaining to see like young children and just even adults enjoying the historical ride. So I definitely went on that ride twice. So I really, that was my favorite one.
Oh, that's fantastic. Do they have those comment cards? You can probably correct their.
Oh yeah, I would be that. Yeah, I should. I mean, Epcot in general is really amazing. It's you could go through, like the different countries and stopped in each one, had a little snack. My favorite was Germany because you had all the like German candies, and I bought out the entire store.
Oh my gosh.
Got too many candies, but I really like them.
There can't be too many candies, so I disagree with that statement.
That's true. I'm glad that you mentioned that, because there can't be.
I learned something new about you. Yeah, and that brings you back to tell us a little bit about your money story, like the why financial planning, because everyone has this reason why they're interested in finances or avoid it or want to learn more about it. So why don't you share a little bit about your money story and how that evolved into you starting your own business and working with clients?
So one of my favorite stories. Okay, so it's really back when I was 5 years old. I would always collect $1 here. If I, had a little extra change from lunch, I'd save it. I wouldn't get the drink. I'd just get the water, and then like $1.50, $2 from the drink I'd save. And I would, if I found a quarter on the ground or had some extra birthday money, I put it away at a really young age to this cigar box, this Cuban cigar box my father gave me. And it would open slowly, like creak slowly open. It was wooden. It had girls and with hula dresses on and wide smiles. And I'd always be like, look, I'm putting that dollar in. They're happy to receive it. And one morning, my dad comes in, and he's kind of formal with me. He's a anesthesiologist, and he says, good morning, son. I'm going to the grocery store, and I would like to not have to stop by the ATM. And would you mind lending me $20? And so at that moment, my heart glowed. Here is the man who put the roof over my head, who put dinner on the table every night, and gave the widest safety net for any kind of financial or situations that we, if anytime we needed help, he would be there. And here I was able to help him. So of course I lent him the money, and then next morning he comes in, while we're having breakfast, he says, Konrad, come here. And he opens his wallet, hands me the 20 back. And I'm like, okay, great, got my money back. And then he slowly peels out another $10 bill. And my eyes just opened up like saucers. I was like, whoa, at $10, that was like $1 million back then for me. So, and then he said, Konrad, this is interest. And then at that point, I was hooked. I was like, look, I want to be a money man. I'm like, I don't know what this industry is, like what, all the technical lingo. I don't know it. However, I know that feeling of being able to help the loved one and, help them in a way that was truly meaningful. I think that really translated to where I am today, because that same glowing feeling I have whenever I help a family member, a friend, or a client, and they all really are a single group, and I treat them all the same, because it really that feeling I've been chasing it, and it's created a lifelong career and passion. And when people ask me, like, Connor, do you like what I do? I'm like, no, I love what I do. I mean, really, I get to spend my days talking to clients and learning their situation, learning the goals, where they want to go. And, finding that passion, whenever you're going to be entering the industry is, focusing on that. If because there's different avenues to go. So say if you want to be more of a back office, plan designer, or that role exists. So don't think that you have to do what I do necessarily, of like bringing in clients and finding new opportunities. That's a role in itself too. So there's multiple things, but the biggest thing is to learning, like, what is it, the thing that you love, and focusing your skills on that, and being able to really nurture it and let it blossom. And I think that really came about from very, very young age of 5 years old, whenever I was able to like lend that grocery store money to my dad. And now I'm in a different state, and with my own company, and it all came from a very, very young age from that story.
I love it. I love that story. It's such a great example of, past experiences that sparked your interest and ignited your path. And I think we all have those experiences. Some were really positive and impactful. And I want to recognize some of those experiences can actually be painful. And that's a motivation to learn about finances and help others with it. So our experiences come from multiple places, and that's one thing we do in communication counseling. And several of these students from my communication counseling class this last spring, we looked at money history, and I had students explore their past experiences with money and how those experiences shape behavior. So it's similar to what you're doing, and this is something you do with clients as well, because how they view and think of money and behave with money can be connected to their past experiences with it. So I love your story.
I do have to ask, do you have a story like that for yourself? Is there when that comes to mind that you're like, wow, that was an experience in my younger days?
Yeah, I do. Like I said, we all do. And I love that you followed up with that question. I'll share mine really quickly. And I did share this back in the communication counseling class too. So for those that weren't in that class, this will be new for you. But my story is, I grew up in New Zealand. That's where I was born. My parents are from the States. And when I was about 10 years old, they surprised us with, we're moving back to the US. We're going back to Kansas. We landed in Oklahoma, so not exactly where we were intending, but my parents had decided to move, and I was, I think, devastated. I was like, I didn't want to go at that age. I had some good friends. I was just mad. But my parents had moved us around quite a bit, like every couple of years. So I also wasn't new to moving and this idea of kind of leaving something and going to something new. But this move hit me because we were not moving within the country. We were moving overseas, and it was a major move. And, finances were tight. I grew up with everything I needed. I was well taken care of, but, not a wealthy family to where you can have everything you wanted. I mean, most people aren't in a family where you can have just everything. So there's usually financial boundaries. But anyway, we were really limited on what we could take back with us. So I remember this big garage sale of essentially selling most of our things. And I remember certain childhood items getting sold. And I was like, oh, I was fine, but it stuck with me for a really long time. And so that's, it was a neat experience to move to the US at that age, but also a somewhat traumatic one because of leaving all this stuff behind and things getting sold. So I think that sort of formed some early money scripts around this desire to have things and pursue like money status and sort of accumulate stuff. And so, but I also had this disconnection with things as well, like, okay, I could take it or leave it type of a relationship. Not, I don't know if that's healthy or not, but anyway, our money story continues to shape into adulthood, right? So I think it affected behavior early on, and then it affects behavior now too, because I've become much more frugal and selective in what I do buy. And I can trace some of this behavior all the way back to my money story. And so I also grew up liking money. I like to work. I like to make my own income. I like to buy what I wanted to buy. And I love numbers. And when I learned that financial planning combined numbers with helping people, I was sold. I'm like, that's it. That's what I want to do. And then I pursued that dream. So that would be my story.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
I'm so happy I asked that. That's so colorful.
Yeah. Well, and I think sort of this exchange we're having also emphasizes experience over that of just financial education. So when I was listening to your story again, I thought that, wow, you really understood the concept of interest, not because someone said, hey, this is what interest is, and here's its definition, but you experienced it. And through that experience, you learned it, and it stuck, and it gave it meaning. And I think that's sort of this disconnect between financial education and creating financial behaviors, is that it takes experience, not just information, to learn, if that makes sense.
That's such a great point, because I mean, that happens all the time. I mean, essentially, it's kind of a little bit meta, because even in a client meeting, you're really educating your client. Like, you're like, look, these are all great goals, and and this is how good solutions to get there. However, if you don't do a great job of educating them to be like, look, in a way that they understand it and they actually carry through with it, then your planning's for nothing. So it really, I think it's important to visualize yourself now whenever you're learning the material in your retirement class, and being able to translate that to your audience that's going to be your clients and your people you'll be helping. And really the education is just, it's a requirement. Like you'll be coming into the industry with stellar credentials, and then the next level would be to, okay, how do I apply it? How do I bring in your own experiences through stories like the two that you just heard, and also being able to connect with the people that you're teaching, and being able to communicate tough concepts. Interest, it's for some people, inflation and interest, they just don't understand, like, why are things getting more expensive, and being surprised at that, and why is it not a good idea just to have all my money in the bank just sitting there and not doing anything. So things like that, I think, yeah, totally, Sarah, totally agree with you. I think it's phenomenal to be able to put your own experiences, share those experiences, and then connect with the people that you're trying to teach their experiences with the ideas that you're trying to convey. And that's very, very helpful.
Yeah, and you connect well with clients through those experiences and helping them feel their own and recognize their own. Like, for example, you could talk to them about asset allocation, and then you position them in their portfolio how it makes sense to. And then when they experience volatility, you can help them see what that is and what's happening and how their asset allocation is functioning in that environment. So you could say, hey, you're experiencing the effects of the asset allocation that we put you in. Those are little ways, tiny ways that you can help them see and learn and grow in their own financial capability. Yeah. So Konrad, tell us a little bit more about your business, who you're serving, what that looks like, what topics you tend to cover, any client stories or examples that you want to share without sharing client data, of course.
Okay. Is that a question or suggestion for topic any longer? Because that was so broad. Okay. So here
well, where do you want to start? Yeah. Start anywhere with that.
Okay. So type of clients go first. And then what was the second part?
Just tell us more about your business, the type of clients you're serving, how you work with them. Like, are you virtual? Do you have virtual meetings?
Yes. Okay.
So, like, anything about your business that would interest them.
Okay. Yes. I mean, one of those things are meeting today. Great segue, because having virtual meetings is really, truly the future solution for many people, and including my clients that are retirees. So a portion of my business is retirees. And especially why this class on retirement is so important, because you will always, if you're in a very young budding city, you will face the clients that are like, look, I'm approaching retirement. And even with the clients that are young professionals or business owners, they're thinking about retirement too. So the things that you're learning now, super crucial. And so I would say a good third, if not 40%, of our clients are retirees. And I've noticed that, especially because of the pandemic, I'm able to have client meetings over Zoom and telecommunication, and it's becoming more and more the norm. Like DocuSign for paperwork. So instead of having to have wet signatures, I mean, really now it's the rarity. I had a case that I was working on that they're like, look, we really need it. I'm like, look, I use my DocuSign software, and they're like, we can tell it's DocuSign. I'm like, what do you mean? It's it's a stylist on a screen. And I had to like physically print out the piece of paper, scan it back in. And so that's really now the rarity. So technology, being able to leverage that's something that in my firm, like we really do. And I'm so happy about that, because it's such a time saver, and you're able to do so many things digitally. So in your technology class, that's another aspect that, like, look, hey, pay attention to, how Money Guide Pro works, but also pay attention to like your Excel, to how to do a PowerPoint presentation, how all these different pieces, they help you present. So like, I would say the other 40% of my clients are young professionals. And young professionals, they definitely understand in a modern age, like, look, I don't really want to come in your office and have to have this meeting if I can have it digitally. Or alternatively, they want to be able to access their information online through a client portal. That's really important. And third, I think being able to have understanding digital communication, understanding the hierarchy of like, okay, look, I can send an email to communicate the message. Then I have like a phone call, a text, a face-to-face meeting. And that kind of all goes back to like the way you interact with your client, the way you interact with the people you help, because some things that you communicate really need to be done in a phone call or a face-to-face meeting, so especially if it's something very difficult, very challenging to communicate. People appreciate that. They're like, look, let me have a phone call. And third would be business owners, and business owners especially, they understand, look, Konrad, I'm so busy. I need you to I have a one meeting in 2 weeks from now that's for an hour long, and we need to get this done in that time slot. And then so that's an opportunity for you to really leverage technology and be like, look, I have everything ready. DocuSigns, as soon as we decide which strategy we pick, we can work with that. And so yeah, that's like leveraging technology. Those are kind of the client bases that I interact with, and how tech has helped me to do so. Did I get that question? I think there was another piece.
Oh, good. No, I want to pause there because
Sure.
Students, you may have heard, you need to leverage technology and be, flexible in that. And the examples Konrad just gave are wonderful in terms of, what types of clients might want that or need that. And clients want different things. Some just want face-to-face, so you do that. So I like to think of your capability and flexibility with a variety of modes of communication is a key way that you show empathy to clients. So your business owner says, I have an hour. You say, hey, I get that. We're going to construct this meeting so we fit that hour. I'm going to manage this meeting so we get through it. I'm going to give you enough space to talk so you feel heard, client, but I understand your environment and we got to get this done. So it's it may not be how you think of empathy, because we talked about that in class, being like, reflective listening and saying, oh, I see you're feeling sad, but sometimes empathy is through your actions and how you follow up and meet the client where they are at. So I just wanted to add that piece in.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, because often enough people love to talk and look, you told me I want to respect your time, I want to respect my time, and this meeting's getting pushed out, but I know you have a meeting. I know I have a meeting coming up. So honestly, that's a challenge, because I'm always like, oh, go ahead, tell me another story. Like, I'm here, and I have to be like, okay, right. We really have to get to this. I can remember one client in particular, we were working on her Medicare, and at one point her Medicare strategy, and at one point she's like, look, I grow mangoes in my backyard, and how about whenever the fruit comes in, let me bring you some, and then I really want you to meet my young daughter, and she's single. And then I'm like, and at that point I'm just like, look, okay, I have to really put a stop to this client, this direction this meeting's going to, because we're getting off track of where we're, what help you really need, because having medical coverage, that's one of the key pillars in retirement. So I'm like, look, I know this is great. I love mangoes, homegrown mangoes. And I said, yes, I'll gladly purchase some from you, and let's keep the meeting going.
Yeah. Or I love that example. That's a common question I get when I go through communication and counseling is, how do you manage the meeting when you open it up for them to talk? Because you'll find that when they trust you, when they know you're not going to judge them, and you ask a good question, they will want to share. And that's exactly what you want. However, you can't lose control of your meeting either, because that's your job. When you lose control of your meeting, then you're putting it on the client to rein it in, and they don't want to do that. So they appreciate it when you respectfully kind of refocus it back on what they need, so that you can move through it in a good way. So I love that example you just gave, because it speaks to meeting management, and you help controlling the flow of that meeting. So good work.
Yeah, I think that's very important, because also whenever you're fact finding during a meeting, and trying to ask leading questions where you'll get answers that will lead you to what strategies you'll be recommending, so that you kind of help that person open up, instead of being like, look, being very mechanical with it. Allow your client to answer the questions you may need in a more organic way. I think that's a good way to do it too.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. So let's shift a little bit to some of the topics you cover. So clearly students are getting the feel that Communication, counseling, relationship management are key. It's such an important skill set to have. It's necessary. Let's talk a little bit more about Medicare, Social Security, maybe even retirement needs analyses, and how you do those in practice, because that's what they've covered up to this point is time value of money with their calculators. We're also using Money Guide Pro, and we just went through Social Security and Medicare, and you mentioned Medicare. So I threw a lot of topics your way right there. So
I love it. I love it. Yeah. Medicare and Social Security.
Wherever you want to start. Go ahead.
Yeah, they're very crucial in retirement. It's more than 50% of people are now currently going into retirement rely on Social Security as their main source of income in retirement. And that's a staggering figure. So you really, when you're learning about Social Security, super, super crucial. And your help there to with your planning is really good, because it's an added value that you can give to your clients, that you kind of set yourself apart. You instead of, because there's many advisors that don't even mention it, that they're like, I don't understand the program. Like, this is outside of the stock market, S&P 500. So I don't really want to touch it. Well, you add so much more trust and value to your client when you're able to let's look at, where's your break-even analysis of, should I wait to 65? Should I wait to 70? At what point is it best for me to collect? What happens if one spouse passes away? What are my tax consequences if I collect early? All those kind of questions that you can answer really bring you forward as an expert and as an authority. And that really builds trust with your client. I think that's huge, 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 huge. And second is Medicare. Medicare is also a very important government program that your retirees, if anybody turning 65, that's when they're able to qualify for Medicare. And being able to understand those programs, and either in a way that you align yourself with a professional that you okay, well, look, if I have a question, I'll be able to have Clark answer it. Or if you have get licensed yourself and be able to answer those questions yourself. I think it's very, very important, because in retirement, medical costs can be astronomical, and you really don't want to leave that kind of risk exposure to your client, because sure, you're guaranteeing them rates of return on their other investments. However, exposing them to risk and risk management, just the same way you have life insurance, or you have car insurance, home insurance, any kind of insurance, deflect that risk to a larger entity like the federal or state government, and then your or private insurance companies, and then your client's much safer and more risk has less risk exposure, which is a great strategy. And then the calculators, I think you're talking about, like we did earlier this week here, time value of money calculators, financial calculators, they look great in client meetings, because very often, you'll put on a presentation, or here's, the numbers from the illustration, and they seem abstract. So when you're able to understand what math is going on, plug it into your calculator, and then turn your calculator and show it to your client, be like, look, this math adds up. This is the result. It's very impressive. And that tactile nature of having something physical, as well as electronic, really helps to bring in the message, the thing that you're trying to teach the person home. And it has that ability of acting like a prop. And I think it really helps in that conversation, because it's not just so abstract as ledgers on a screen. It's also here in person. So I really like bringing my Texas Instrument calculator to meetings, and even if it's simple math, and it's something that I learned from a previous partner of mine, and I've been very, very grateful to learn that lesson, because especially retirees, they really enjoy that. They enjoy that calculator. And it looks better than just pulling up your phone and using your phone calculator, or doing a calculator on the computer. Really having something physical like that. So TVM is not going away. Learn it well. It's not just a set of quizzes. You're always going to use it, and it's very, very practical. So highly encourage that you focus on those quizzes.
I love that, because I think it's great to hear how that can be used as a tool in a client meeting, because I think students often hear, and they've heard from me too, like when you're giving recommendations, especially on retirement needs analyses, you want to use software with a strong statistical method backing up your results, like Monte Carlo, right? However, I like hearing about how the calculator, even though the calculation method is much more simple, it's still useful to give approximations, rules of thumb, and in some ways it breaks down a communication barrier. So sometimes software might seem complicated, difficult to understand for some clients, and so breaking it down to like a basic calculation that hopefully the result is somewhat in line with what you're thinking can help them get a greater sense of effort. And that alone will open up their mind to possible scenarios. You're trying to remove some of the maybe stress or negative emotion that could be happening to a reaction of a more complicated analysis. So students practice with your calculators, get good and fluent in using them. It's worth it for your future. And if you're a newer financial planner and you're working with a more seasoned advisor, that seasoned advisor might ask you on the fly in a client meeting to punch out some numbers. So I remember in practice that happening when I was in client meetings, starting out. It's like, hey, Sarah, can you? And I'm like, at first I'm like, I kind of froze, like, it's like, oh, stress. Can I do this under pressure? So your exams and being able to do stuff like that under pressure is really good practice for client meetings.
Definitely. I still sometimes wake up with cold sweats in the morning thinking about your TVM quizzes. So they're worthwhile because there's that kind of pressure whenever it came to real life, and it's with smiling clients, then you're like, oh, okay.
I'm glad I prepared you well.
You did, very much did. And actually that's like a little fun story too, because retirement before you took over was known as the kind of class. I was like, okay, it's, you already have 5 other classes you can tack on, or 4 other classes you can tack on another one, because this retirement's not that bad. And then I think I was your first year that you taught retirement, or maybe your second year, so your reputation wasn't there yet, and I got totally hoodwinked because your class was so tough, and I was like, oh shoot, I gotta like come prepared with questions to office hours, and really study the book, and those TVM quizzes were tough, and and I'm happy now because so much of my practice is retirement, and I feel much more ready after taking your course.
Good. I love hearing those success stories, and that I made you work a little bit.
Definitely did.
Well, good. Well, we're coming up on around 45 minutes. I'm trying to think, Konrad, is there what else might you want to share before we flip to Q&A?
I would say another piece that, when you're approaching retirement, that's a really key feature to talk about is long-term care. And I think long-term care is so important. It goes hand in hand with Medicare. However, many people have the misconstrued idea that Medicare is your long-term care solution. And it really isn't. It's Medicaid, which is a different program altogether for people that are of low income, provides long-term care solutions. However, that's for state-designated facilities, and it's not like the choice that you may want. It might not include somebody coming into your home and helping you. And I think it's much more savvy to plan for long-term care early on, between the ages of 55 to 65, 70. It's really kind of the golden window for long-term care planning. And there's some really savvy things that exist today to leverage money. So you're putting $1 away, but you're getting like $3 or $4 or $5 of benefit later on. And I think that's really important to talk to your retiree clients, because you want to protect them in retirement, and you want to, because at the end of the day, everybody has a long-term care plan, and that's their retirement. There's all the money that they've earned to this day, and you don't want their legacy to be chipped away by having to pay for long-term care. rather have that strategy. And there's many to be done, but the point is to plan for that. So I think that's, if I recall correctly, I think you may touch on that, or that. Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah, and students, I did not prep him with that piece of his presentation today. I'm glad you talked about that, because in class lecture, I spent a good amount of time talking about long-term care costs and how Medicare doesn't cover much, if anything. And I showed them the Genworth cost of care survey. We looked at costs in Texas. So I spent 10, 15 minutes just on long-term care. They cover that in the insurance class, but it's relevant as you look at Medicare coverage. And there's a misconception, I think, generally, that Medicare provides that. There's a little bit, but there's really not a lot, and you don't get the care you necessarily want. So I'm glad you emphasized that point as well.
I was not Venmo'd. I was not PayPal to say that message. That was genuine field advice and observation that, in retirement, super crucial. You have that need for, to address that, because market returns are great. And also, you want to address risk out there too. So I think that's important as well.
Great. So Konrad, why don't you address your advice? So if you're a student listening to your presentation today, what might you be wondering, or what might be the key piece of advice?
I remember on Tuesday you said I had a really great self-posed question, but I don't remember what the self-posed question was.
Well, I tried to do it. I think it was, if you're sitting in the audience.
Oh, today, right. Okay. Yeah. I got you.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask myself this question. If I was sitting here as a student, what advice would I most like to hear from somebody that's, 4 or 5 years down the line? And I think one of the crucial things, we've touched on about it a little bit, is just leaning on your network. So your professional network, your education network, your family and friends. You have now a huge opportunity to continue a relationship with your professors, attend their office hours, come with questions, and continue those relationships, because they're constantly, the world's constantly evolving, and you may need to have questions answered, or advice, or maybe even I've had a professor that helped me get a job back in my from law school, and that connection happened just because of that. And I think it's really important to know. And then when you're approaching the workplace, I think this is really, really, really important. And this is on the Temple of Delphi in Greece. The motto is "Know thyself," and know who you are whenever you're approaching that workplace. So know, okay, I am a person that loves client interaction. I love talking to people and presenting, and having that kind of energy, that forward energy. For you, that position exists. And however, if you are complete opposite, don't get discouraged, because your traits, your skills of, say, internal planning or advanced marketing, where you're okay, hey, I'm going to have to learn these plans very well, and I'll have agents or advisors in the field that will have questions and call you, as being maybe a part of a carrier, and having being able to answer those questions. Your role exists too. So really know yourself. Know what are your strengths to bring to a interview, and then just be the person you'd want to work with. So if you're sitting there try not to clam up and be oh, okay, I'm really nervous about it. Just let go and pretend that the person sitting across from you in your interview desk is your best friend. And you're look, this is who I am. These are my hobbies. Because at the end of the day, your education is phenomenal, and it is really the foundation. So from then on, you have to set yourself apart and be look, these are the things I'm interested in. If you're introverted, maybe you reading, or you have some kind of hobbies that help you, and focus on those. So third thing I'd say would be focus on your hobbies that you really enjoy, because that's a really great way to meet people in a genuine and outgoing way. That's very natural that you say for me would be sports. I love, pickleball, volleyball, golf, all these different sports. And I meet friends, colleagues and clients that way because they, we interact and they're like, oh, well, Konrad, what do you do? And then I say what I do and they're like, oh, well, you know what, my mother, or I need help with that, or so on. And that's how, it's a natural way to do it. So I think those three things, like know who you are, practice your hobbies, and be aware that whatever your skill set is, that exists, and focus on, maybe not necessarily, chasing your dream company, but chase the environment, the culture that you'd really like, and the where your skill set fits in. I think those are three things I would tell that to myself if I'd be sitting across this Zoom call.
Great advice. I like how you describe that. Chase the culture that you and the work environment that you want, not maybe a typical or a target position or company, but what do you want your work life to look like, and leverage your strengths, recognize who you are, where you can contribute, because if you can focus on your strengths and building those, not just fixing problems. I think one challenge in the industry is over focusing on correcting problems instead of focusing on strengths of when you're in a firm and you're an employee and you're managed by somebody, trying to focus on the strengths of the person as opposed to the weaknesses. So you, as new financial planners entering the profession, do that for yourself. Focus on your strengths and find that place within the financial planning ecosystem, which is Konrad's word from earlier this week, which I really liked, and find that job that fits and leverages your strengths, because then you will naturally just be awesome at what you do when you can use those strengths. So great.
Yeah, and last thing I was just going to add, and if you are a terrible employee, don't worry. You can start your own firm and be very successful too, because I, self-proclaimed, I was a terrible employee. So I know that that's not my strong suit, and I'm so happy that I took the plunge and created my own firm. And I think that's that avenue exists. So really, that ecosystem is very broad. You can work with a big, Fortune 500 company. You can work with a medium-sized advisory under a more seasoned advisor, and then you can open, maybe after you get more experience, open up your own practice too. That whole spectrum exists. So wherever you fall into that, you're able to find what will be your career, what would be your lifelong passion.
I love it. I think that's a great point to end on, and we'll turn to Q&A in just a moment. I just want to say thank you for spending some time with us today, Konrad, and delivering your wisdom to myself and my class. So thank you.
My pleasure.